Hello, everybody. In this documentary, I'm going to tell you the story about a war that broke out in a small town in Iowa. It wasn't a shooting war, it was a war between two businessmen determined to make their company the winner. They had a unique choice of weapons in fighting this war. It was radio. Coming up next on the Roaring Twenties radio channel. Welcome to all my regular subscribers here on Roaring Twenties radio YouTube channel, and also the new viewers who have been tuning in lately. Good to see you here too. Today we have a brand new documentary called War in the Cornfields, Field versus May. Let's get right into it, shall we? In 1924, a radio war began in Shenandoah, Iowa, between two businessmen. Both were strong-willed men who owned businesses selling seed, among other things, to local farmers. Although the war took place in Shenandoah, the seeds of their war were planted at a radio station 60 miles away in Omaha, Nebraska. On April 2, 1923, a new radio station began operating in Omaha, Nebraska. The name of the station was WOAW. Shortly after it began broadcasting, WOAW became a popular place for businessmen to advertise their products. Two of these men were Henry Arms Field, founder of the Henry Field Seed Company, and Earl Ernest May, founder of the Earl Ernest May Seed and Nursery Company. Fields had built his company from scratch beginning in 1899. May moved to Shenandoah in 1919 and bought out the small Armstrong Seed Company that same year. These two men would travel 60 miles between Shenandoah and Omaha regularly to promote their businesses on the radio station. Impressed with radio station WOAW, it wasn't long before Henry Field decided he wanted a radio station of his own. And in 1924, he founded the 500-watt radio station KFNF in his hometown of Shenandoah. The radio station would be built on the roof of a seed business. Thanks to the new radio station, his business boomed and people would come from far and wide to meet the faces behind the voices at station KFNF and tour the radio station. The station's slogan would become, "Keep friendly, never frown." Field's competitor, Earl May, bristled at Field's success with his new radio station and decided that he would build one as well, and applied for a license in early 1925. That spring, May received his license and began construction of his own radio station. On October 1st of that same year, Earl May's radio station began broadcasting with the call letters KMA. The slogan was, "Keep Millions Informed." The war in the cornfield was on. In the beginning, both radio stations had to share a frequency with other radio stations, limiting their broadcasting to only a few hours a day. Eventually, they each received their own frequencies, allowing them to broadcast all day long. Both KFNF and KMA had all live programming, with each station promoting its owner's businesses and products very subtly. Back in those days, advertising on radio was frowned upon. It was downright uncouth. I'll bet radio listeners today wish that were still true. Both seed companies flourished, and both men did extremely well financially. At night, skywave propagation allowed their radio station signals to be heard from far away, and both stations' listening audience grew substantially across the Midwest. During the day, an area of the Earth's lower atmosphere called the ionosphere blocks AM radio waves, limiting their range. Skywave propagation occurs at night when the ionosphere weakens and allows the AM signal through, where it bounces off the upper atmosphere and is deflected to areas far outside the signal's daytime range. Hello, everyone. My apologies for the interruption, but this is the part where I shamelessly beg you to subscribe if you haven't already. And also, please hit the like button and help support my channel. Let's get back to the story. In 1925, Radio Digest ran a contest to see who the most popular radio commentator was, and Henry Field won. Earl May wasn't far behind, as he would go on to win in 1926. The battle for popularity between Fields and May put Shenandoah on the map. Finally, in 1926, the dirt road leading to the town was paved, making it easier for visitors to get there. In that same year, a total of 40,000 visitors visited the radio stations of both men. That was a lot of tourists for a town of only 5,800 residents. Field decided to build a formal studio for his radio station, a one-story stucco building on the company property. May would upstage Field by building a huge new studio building with seating for 1,000 people to watch the radio shows as they were broadcast live. The sheet of glass separating the audience from the studio was 7 feet high and 22 feet long. It was the largest piece of glass ever produced at the time. After May's new station was up and running, the number of radio tourists grew to thousands a week. The few hotels in town were fully booked. Henry Fields built a KNKF gas station plus an arcade and ice cream shop. Earl May built a miniature golf course called May Fairways. May and Field both built trading stores in Shenandoah and both built company branch stores around the Midwest. Field would build 7, and May would build 13 of these branch stores. In the fall, both men's companies would sponsor a Jubilee weekend in Shenandoah. May's company started in 1925 and drew 25,000 people. The following year, business at May's seed company quadrupled. Field's company would often compete by holding their Jubilee on the same weekend as May's Jubilee. Eventually, it became a combined event, and by 1930, the fair's attendance skyrocketed to 440,000 attendees. By contrast, the town's total population in 1930 was 6,500 people. The 1930s would bring the end of Shenandoah's boomtown days as the Great Depression took hold across the Midwest. By 1933, the festival's attendance had plummeted to 85,000 people and remained at that level through much of the 1930s. Henry Field's business dropped off and his inventory lost much of its value. The AM radio band had become crowded, and both KNKF and KMA lost listeners to other stations. In 1933, bonds that Field had issued to raise funds for his company were foreclosed on, and he lost control of his company. However, Henry Field remained as president of the seed company and radio company. KMA was not unaffected by the Depression. Earl May sold 25% of his company to raise money, and the seed company and radio company were separated as businesses, with the radio station now under the newly formed May Broadcasting Company banner. It was the end of the radio war in the Iowa cornfields. Earl Ernest May died on December 19, 1946, and was buried at Rose Hill Cemetery in Shenandoah, Iowa. Members of his family took over running the radio station. Henry Field died on October 17, 1949. Henry could rest a little easier knowing that at the time of his death, his company had recovered from the Great Depression and had sales of over $3 million that year. Henry Field joined his competitor Earl May when he was buried at Rose Hill Cemetery. In 1963, the May family moved KMA out of its huge auditorium into a smaller, modern radio station. The old building had become a white elephant and was torn down in 1966. The May family sold the radio station in 2019 to a group of local investors. KMA is still in business, broadcasting at 960 AM, along with its sister station broadcasting on 99.1 FM. The most famous entertainers to ever perform on station KMA were some young teenagers billed as the Everly family. They were discovered by a talent agent in 1952 and rose to stardom as the Everly Brothers. The Earl May Seed and Nursery Company is still family owned and run by Earl's granddaughter, Betty Jane Shaw. As for Henry Field's businesses, his radio station, KFNF, changed hands many times before finally disappearing. Field's seed business was eventually absorbed by Gurney's Seed and Nursery Company. Henry Arms Field and Earl Ernest May are gone, but the lives they lived and the memories they made for so many people still live on in the hearts of their descendants, in radio history, and here on Roaring Twenties Radio. Hello, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed the latest mini documentary here on the Roaring Twenties Radio YouTube channel. I look forward to seeing all of you here again very soon. So until then, take care of yourself. Bye-bye.